So, hello and welcome to another Road to Nationals focused episode of Steelfur Speaks with, of course, me, Steelfur. I have been thinking if I need a better name for this channel than just Steelfur Speaks, if I need something more fab related, Steelfur, Steel. I can't. I'm not thinking great about them today. Something like, you know, Bear plus Kadachi or something. I don't know. I'll work it out. But I'm kind of excited. I'm waiting for the Tales of Arya set to come out and see what our nature themed heroes are going to be like. Because obviously, Steelfur comes from my years of playing a druid, bear, tank in WoW. Iron Fur is one of the main abilities. Steelfur is my character name. Um, so when it comes to like nature themes, druids, stuff like that, like I'm really there. Korshem, which is the world tree that we see on all the Arya art, is my biggest bet for the Fabled, and I absolutely have to get one. So whatever this is, we know that the third hero is going to be like nature themed. And my current bet, and I've talked about this before, is that it's going to be a warden, so a warden of Candleloft. They talk about wardens coming from Candleloft. They talk about their thorns, which are spears. And if you look at the edge of the pack art, you'll kind of see that it looks like there's a spear sticking off the side of the pack. So, and my current updated guesses for what we're getting in Tales of Arya: Guardian, Ranger, and Warden as a new class focusing on spears and nature magic, which I think is going to be awesome. So we are here today to talk about Katsu and Road to Nationals in general, but also specifically Katsu. And this is going to be the video where I talk through, as my long promised, Katsu deck tech for the deck that I have just taken to win Road to Nationals. So for those of you who don't follow the sort of Road to Nationals scene, we've had 4 in the UK so far. I've attended all 4 of them. I have been in the finals of 3 of the 4, and I came 14th, and the fourth one I was having a rough day, and I have won 2 of them. So there is a photo floating around that I'll put up in a second of me with both of my tunics. Oh, there we go. Sorry, with both of my playmats, because I was using this in the final, so the store made me pose with them. But safe to say, I am happy to have successfully played and won 2 events. A little bit of luck, I would say a reasonable amount of skill, and just playing Katsu cleanly. We'll see, and we'll go through at the end of this video some of the streams and the games that I played, so you can see the lines I played and how I played Katsu. We can talk through some of the games and the decision points involved. Notes and just thoughts on Road to Nationals in general. So obviously the prizes are the tunics, the extended art tunics, which are absolutely gorgeous, the tunic playmats, and of course for making the top 8 you also get a cold foil Monarch hero. I was quite interested why the cold foil Monarch heroes didn't have more like cold foiling on them, and I've got an official response to this from LSS. So let's just see if I can bring this up. What? So I asked them. I just said, what is actually going on with the cold foils? Because a lot of people I've talked to have said actually the fact that the cold foil borders are only. Sorry, the fact that the cold foil heroes only have cold foil borders is something they're a little disappointed by, and they really wish that the cold foiling was also on the hero art, like we see with the legendary cold foils, where the armor and things like that get touched up. So if you haven't seen one of those in person, just the border is cold foiled and the hero art was. Now I asked about this, I asked why, and LSS's official response, which I think is perfectly fair. It's not really an issue about cost. The cost difference doesn't really matter. However, cold foiling, in their opinion, is not the same as rainbow foiling. You cannot apply it indiscriminately because it affects the color and the resolution of the artwork. For the heroes, they're much more comfortable letting the art shine by itself because the focus of the art is the whole hero and not just like a specific piece of armor like we get with the legendaries. Whereas if they put a lot of foiling on top, they feel like it would affect the quality of the underlying art. And they kind of want heroes to have a consistent appearance to as close to the original design goals as possible. And they do. I specifically asked about the cold foil auras because those, of course, got a really gorgeous foil treatment with the cold foiling. And they said really those are sort of a special case. because the underlying art worked so perfectly for cold foils. They actually put in a lot more than they originally thought they would. And I would agree with that completely. I mean, I don't know that I have one to hand easily right now, but if you ever see one of the cold foil auras, they are absolutely amazing. Which does bring us on to our second point, which is one of the things I think is a slight misstep. So I love these prizes. I've obviously got quite a few of them. I think they're amazing. So if I'm being critical, please take that as a constructive criticism. I do think the heroes, especially someone like Bolton, would look amazing if the armor had some cold foiling or some detailing done. I do think they have missed a trick, maybe just adding some light foiling into those cold foil heroes. The cold foil auras are amazing. The one thing I think is a misstep is that obviously there are prizes for the top 30. There are prizes for the top 32 players at the events. There are cold foil auras for places 9 to 32nd. This isn't a greed thing. This is a fact that, like, if you're a Prism player or you think the cold foil auras are really gorgeous, and they are, and you do well in an event, you can't actually get them without trading for them or paying someone for them. It feels just kind of weird that there's this prize that's out of reach for the top cut when everyone else gets it. Whereas a lot of events for most other card games, when a prize is given out, the top cut gets it and something else, rather than not getting that and then that going to everyone else. So it just kind of feels a bit weird, and it feels like you're getting slightly punished if you really wanted the cold foil auras and you keep doing well at events, you don't get them. And of course you can trade for them and you have better prizes that you can trade for them, but it's not really the point. The point is adding an extra 8 cards into every pack and just giving a cold foil aura to everyone kind of seems like it's an easy win, really. And again, I did talk to I got a response from Alan Hale on this. He just said, look, we wanted to put something in there to make sure as many people as possible could get a prize. But I think if you're already giving prizes for 1 to 8 and then 9 to 32, you can make it 1 to 32 without that much disruption. So I think that's just a bit of a mistrick. But otherwise, the pricing is great. The experience is really good. Please do go to RTNs. They are casual level events. I have seen new players going in. If you're making mistakes, the judges aren't going to slap you down. The opponents aren't going to slap you down. You're a new player. That's perfectly fine. Just, we're going to help you play better. I've seen someone who has literally played for a week go and win like 2 or 3 games, make quite a lot of mistakes, but get those mistakes corrected by his opponent. It is important to understand that RTNs, as I said in my last video, which is all about RTNs and the experience, RTNs are a casual level event. You should feel comfortable going to them as a new player and, not being, you're not going to have the book thrown at you. You're going to have a good day. People are going to help you play better. You may not win all your games, but you should have a positive experience, especially if you do lose the first 2 and you're playing at the lower tables against people like you're going to have fun. And it doesn't matter if you mess up a few things. People will be incredibly forgiving. Obviously, if you do incredibly well and you get to the top 8, the top cut, people are going to be a bit stricter and they're going to ask you to not make as many mistakes. But if you're playing that well, you're probably going to keep playing well. So, keep it up. So, moving on to the actual deck tech, I do really love just this Katsu animation in the background. I mean, look, I didn't start playing Katsu. I started off this game playing Kano because I just love the wizard instant gameplay style in Blitz. And then I went into Chain when Monarch came out because I tried him in a pre-release and he was just so much fun. And ultimately, I got really frustrated. So a lot of people are like, well, why are you playing Katsu? What's the reason for choosing that hero? So I got really frustrated with playing Chain because of the banishes. If I won a game, it didn't feel like I had won the game. It felt like I got good banishes, and that won me the game. And if I lost the game again, it felt like, oh well, I've just banished my Art of Wars and my E-Strike, so obviously I lose. So the decision of why to play Katsu very much came from this. I am frustrated with Chain, but ultimately I am an aggro player. I like to be setting the tempo of a game. I like clean lines of aggressive play. Saving resources, taking damage, putting more damage on. I have been fond of things like Goblin Rush in Magic, Red Deck wins, in L5R playing Dragon, just going in aggressively. I tend to vary between whether I play mid-range or aggro. I can usually play an aggressive mid-range archetype as well as I can play aggro, but I do like aggro gameplay. Finish your game in 30 minutes, have half an hour off before the next round, take a nice bit of a break. It's quite fun. So, I think that's just important to keep in mind. So I am an aggro player. So when I was thinking, well, why do I switch off chain? What do I switch to? There's a lot of aggro deck lists going around for Katsu, and I was like, let's just do this Katsu thing. So I think that was a good decision. Obviously, it's paid off, but I think like Katsu was the right hero for me. I also do love the Japanese, video game warrior samurai thing. Having been a fan of Legend of the Five Rings for years, this kind of aesthetic of kind of a monk blended with some sort of sword-based fighter is really perfect for me. And some of the art, like Mask of Momentum and stuff like that, is gorgeous. So let's just do a quick primer on Katsu and Ninja in general, for those of you who are new and watching this video. Katsu is a ninja hero, no talent. His ability says when an attack action you control hits, you may discard a card with cost 0. If you do, search your deck for a card with combo, banish it face up, then shuffle your deck. You may play it this turn. Important to note that this is not the first attack action you play in a turn. It is the first attack action that hits in a turn. So if you hit with an attack action, it doesn't matter if it's the first, second, third, or whatever. You, in fact, have to choose whether or not to use the ability. If you do not use it, then it is a missed trigger. Katsu is all about combos. You can see some of them here. Essentially, a combo is a card that rewards you for playing the last card in the combo when you play this new card. So if Whelming Gustwave was the last combat attack in the combat chain, this gets a bonus. Go again and another bonus. And then there are lots of little buffs in Ninja, like Ancestral Empowerment that gives +1, just to help those cards hit, to get you some card draw, and to get the on-hit effects that go off and go with Ninja cards. That's kind of a Ninja primer. It's kind of like play cards, attack, get good combos, and go. If you were playing Ninja during the Blitz season, obviously Arya was less about that. She was more just about defending and aggression. But Katsu very much plays to his combo, and his whole hero ability is just about how do I get my combos off, searching for the right combo pieces. And that lends him a nice bit of consistency in terms of both threat and in terms of power. So if I play a combo opener, like a leg tap or a surging strike, which we'll get to in a bit, which ones I play and which ones I don't, my opponent has a hard decision. I have 3 cards in hand. Maybe I have 1 card in arsenal. Maybe I have 2 cards. I've pitched 1 to play a surging strike. Does he think I have Whelming Gustwave? Do I have the next part of the combo? Does he block Surging Strike? If he doesn't block Surging Strike, then I can search for Whelming Gustwave and play the second piece of the combo. If I have a Mugenshin Release in hand, I can then play that. So does he block the Surging Strike? Now, the answer, if you're playing against Katsu, 9 times out of 10, is to block the Surging Strike. Because if you do, then I am relying on myself having the next piece of a combo naturally. And if I only play 6 of them, that's a bit of a tall order. So I say to people who really want to play well against Katsu, if you block the combo starter, you're forcing me to have that card there, and maybe I do, and maybe you get punished, or maybe, for example, you block Surging Strike and you block Whelming Gustwave, and then I have Mugenshin. Okay, well, now I've just drawn a God Hand, and you're in trouble anyway, right? But you still blocked correctly. And you'll notice that I don't think in any of the games we're going to watch today, because once we finish doing this deck tech, we're going to talk through 2 or 3 games that I've played on stream. You won't see in any of those that, I didn't necessarily get my combo off every turn because people were correctly blocking the combo starters, and I didn't trigger Katsu as many times as possible. The biggest mistake people make against Katsu is to say block the combo starter for 3, take 1 damage, and then the next attack comes in, and they have to block that as well. Now they've got 2 cards left, but I've already searched for another card, and I'm playing that as well, and they can't block it. Maybe I get a bonus, or under-blocking as well. So say, for example, with Whelming Gustwave coming in for 4, if they only block it for 4, and I have something that gives it a buff, I can just get +1 quite easily, and then I still hit and draw a card. So these are all things to be considered. So let's go into the actual deck now, because I think that's going to be the most interesting thing to talk through. So on the equipment, I run a very, very simple... Oh, something is missing. No, it's here. That's fine. I run a very, very simple equipment list. And I think a lot of this list will be familiar with people who have been playing aggro Katsu. I don't think anything here is amazingly spicy. I do run a few things that maybe might surprise people, but that's just meta responses and stuff like that. But I'll talk through the list anyway, and a lot of people who aren't as familiar with aggro Katsu can use this as a benefit, and I'll explain why every card is good. So you start off, of course, with the Kodachis. They're amazing. They get go again from pitching 1 blue. They stab for 2. When you get your opponent down to low life, they really feel pressure to take the 2 damage, so they're not blocking. If you can pitch 1 card and force your opponent to take 2 damage, that's great. If you can pitch 1 card and they are forced to block the Kodachis because they're on really low life, then that's also good. So one of the good strategies for this deck is just race, take damage until you get both of you low, but then you have Kodachis and they don't. So even if they're coming back at you, if they get down to like 1, 2, or 3 life, and they get below 4 life and you've got 2 cards at hand, then they have to start respecting Razor Reflex. And you can make them block each Kodachi swing with 2 cards, which means you automatically get tempo back, and you have more opportunities to arsenal a card, set up a card, get tempo. Breaking Scales is great, +1 attack as an attack reaction. People forget this exists lots of times. It has 1-me games by itself, just by going over for 1. When someone only had a 4 block left in hand, and they were on 1 life. It can block for 1 as well, which is great, and it makes combo cards hit. It only works on cards with combo, but that's what you need it to work on. Tunic is in for control matchups, so actually this should kind of be on the sideboard. I only actually put it in for control matchups. Sorry, just have to refresh for some reason. Let's go back to the sideboard. Yeah, so Tunic is in for control matchups. If I think the game is going to go on longer than 6 turns, I will put Tunic in. Against the majority of players, I play Heart and Crossstrap, which is a good news for people looking to build this deck on a budget. Heart and Crossstrap is an amazing card for this deck. And in fact, most of the time you can just get away with playing Heart and Crossstrap. You don't need to have Tunic. Let's just move myself to the other side so you guys can see a bit better. Yeah, so I think like Heart and Crossstrap goes in against Chain. It goes in against, who else does it go in against? It's got Bolton, Katsu Mirror, Dash, Viscerai. Who else have I been playing recently? Prism. Like, Heart and Crossstrap goes in against everyone. The only people you really play Tunic against are like Control Rider, Control Bravo. If you know you're playing against Control Katsu, you can put it in. And that's it really. Any deck that's just trying to slow you down, you can put it against Control Dash as well, maybe, but I think you're just better off just racing Dash. Anyway, so that's equipment. Mask of Momentum, best equipment in the game. One of them, maybe. It's not generic, but it's amazing. The way this works is, of course, if the 3rd higher attack action you control in a row hits, if the 3rd higher Chain Link in a row is an attack action that hits, you can draw a card once per turn. So that means you can Kodachi, go with attack. If it hits, you draw. You can go attack action, Kodachi, attack action. As long as the 3rd or higher one is an attack action and hits, that's great. Snapskin's Dragon Scaler speaks for itself. Getting go again. You can't beat that. You literally can't beat that. So let's talk about the core main deck then, before we get into the sideboard choices. So we start off with Ancestral Empowerment. It's a 0-cost attack reaction, which is amazing because you can discard it for Katsu. It gets you +1, which can help your combo cards hit and help your on-hit effects trigger. And it draws you a card. And it blocks for 3. This card is amazing. I don't understand why you wouldn't run 3 of them. Head Jab is a 0 for 3 with Go Again. It only blocks for 2, but the 0 for 3 is quite nice for Art of War turns. It's quite nice for getting a bit of aggression in there. And of course, it is an attack you can just do. If you've got a blue pitch, you can just go blue, Kodachi, Head Jab, 5 damage. It's not so bad. There are 3 in the list. This card comes out against control matchups just to give you some other options that are on the sideboard that you're going to want. Enlightened Strike, brilliant in Katsu. You can discard it for Katsu if you need to, and I would highly recommend there are plenty of turns where discarding an E-Strike is the right decision. because, you know, if you can get a 3-part combo chain out, it's well worth getting rid of an E-Strike. I have discarded E-Strikes. I have banished E-Strikes with Art of War. I've done lots of things to my E-Strikes. I've also just played them for, you know, 5 damage. Go again is a really strong play. If your opponent is low on life and down on cards, you know, draw a card can be good as well. If you just, you know, you're just looking for something extra. A really good play, like if you've got E-Strike, a Razor, and another card, is E-Strike, draw a card, Razor reflex the E-Strike up to 8. And then if you've so like think about that as an ideal turn, right? I've got a Razor, I've got a blue, I've got another card, and I've got an E-Strike, right? And I've got something in Arsenal, whatever. Maybe the Razor's in Arsenal. Pitch the blue, Kadachi twice. E-Strike for 5 to draw a card, right? Razor it to 8, pitch the card you just drew to pay for the Razor, and then you draw another card off Mask, you get Go again. It's perfect, right? What's the next play? You'll have something else to attack with, because you're Katsu, you have lots of things to attack with. Flick Flack is a great card. The deck runs 3 of them. It has one that comes in and out depending on who you're playing against. If you're playing against a really, really aggro matchup like Chain or stuff like that, you just don't want to draw defense reactions. You can't cut them completely because the sideboard really doesn't have space for you to have other 0-cost cards. And to be fair, it is sometimes useful to have an extra 4 defense card that you can put in your arsenal and then just use to help win the race one turn when you don't really, you know, because not every turn is gas. You're not going to get complete aggro every turn. Sometimes you do just have to pitch a blue, swing twice with the Kadachi, attack with something else, and then arsenal something like a Flick Flack or a Plunder Run for later on. Flusterfist is a one-of. This is kind of a legacy from when this deck used to run one-of Open the Center as well. But actually, I just keep it in there because it's a 0 for 4 with blocks for 3, and you can go and fetch it with Katsu. So sometimes if you've got, like, say, for example, the head jab turn, where you're just going Kadachi, head jab, if I have another 3-cost, if I have another 0-cost in hand, fetching a Flusterfist and playing it with Katsu, if I can get that to hit with maybe an Ancestral Empowerment or something like that, it's just a solid, like, you know, 1-1-3-4 turn. So that's kind of just a solid line that Flusterfist enables. You rarely don't mind drawing Flusterfist. You can usually mix it into a turn to get a bit of extra damage. And it's fetchable, so it kind of just stays in. Rising Knee Thrust is great. 0-cost blues and reds for Katsu. If you get the combo chain, the blue hits for 3 and you get built-in Go Again, the red hits for 5. Really nice to search out if you get a leg tap off. Just really, really good card. And of course, having that 0-cost amount for Katsu is great. Razor Reflex can literally buff every attack in this deck except Command and Conquer and Surging Strike. And it buffs weapons as well. Really good to pitch early game to get the swords back later game, so you can use it to threaten 4 damage on the swords. I have won games with double Razor on a Kadachi swing that went unblocked. So that's just good, something to think about. Scar for Scar, great card as well. You will take a lot of damage in this deck, and it's not uncommon in a race against, say, Chain or someone like that, for you to take damage that brings you below them on your turn, on their turn, and then for you to dish out more damage than they dealt to you on your turn. And Scar for Scar is a great way to help with that. It is also, even if you don't have Go Again, a really good end to a Kadachi swing. Plus, also Kadachi head jab, Go Again, Kadachi leg tap, and then if they don't let the leg tap hit, Scar for 4 anyway, and you're only losing 1 damage off a Rising Knee Thrust. It's really easy to mix in a 0-cost attack when you have as much Go Again as this deck does. Plunder Run's a great card. It's never a bad decision to Plunder Run as long as you've got 1 or 2 attack actions to play. Plunder Run, double Kadachi into a head jab for 6, Scar for 7, leg tap for 7. There's just it makes your opponent block. It's a fantastic card. Leg tap, perfect combo starter. If it hits, you fetch a Rising Knee Thrust. If you somehow draw both, you will be in a fantastic position. And if you're playing against aggro, there will be a Hurricane technique in your deck to go and fetch, so you can attack. Then we've got the Megenshin Whelming Surging. These kind of speak for themselves. The Surging Strike Whelming Gust Wave chain is one of the best chains in the game. Surging is a 2 for 5 or a 2 for 4, which is already big enough and awkward to block. It takes and demands at least 2 cards. If you draw then a natural Whelming Gust Wave, they've already blocked with 2 cards. This gets a 3rd card, and it's much more likely. It either gets a 3rd and a 4th card, so they can't, or it gets some equipment, or they block it with a 4 and you just pump it for 1 with something and it goes over and it hits. And then you can fetch Mugenshun, play it, and then, of course, Mugenshun turns into Lord of Wind. If you're not familiar with these two, Mugenshun essentially lets you fetch as many Lords of Wind as possible. Lord of Wind lets you spend additional resources when you play it to shuffle in any number of the Surging Strikes, Whelming Gust Wave, and Mugenshun's, and gets a bonus to attack for each one you shuffle in. So doing this, Surging Strike, Whelming Gust Wave, Mugenshun can come in for 5, 4, 5, 8 max. Assuming you haven't played an Art of War or Plunder Run where you could get 7, 8 for 5, 8 or something like that. And the best part, okay, is not really the damage on Lord of Wind. Obviously, it's great, but you're going to get a lot of that damage blocked because this is just your big turn and your opponent will block it. But if you do get the shuffle effect from Lord of Wind, you are basically stacking your deck with Whelming Gust Waves and Surging Strikes late game, or all 3 early game. And that is giving you massive deck tuning because you're basically putting in a load of your best cards back into your deck, having already played them once. So, that's great. Then we have 2 Fine Centers, one's on the sideboard, 3 Crane Dances. Against Control, these come out because I want to add in some stuff like Belittle and Minnowism to get a bit more go again, and ability to get more resources, assuming I'm going to have to block a little bit more. Against Aggro, they come back in. Against Runeblade, they obviously come back in. You're not going to get off the combo against Runeblade that often, but if you do have a Razor or you do have the Snapdragon Scalers active, Crane Dance into Fine Center against Chain is just disgusting. If you get that Zen State token, so if you're not familiar with Zen State, I have one around here somewhere, but Zen State essentially prevents 1 damage that you would take from any source for the next 2 turns until the start of your 2nd turn from now. And that includes all Rune Chants and Seeds of Agony and everything like that. So if you get that out on turn 3 against Chain, that goes. So, against Chain, you can Arsenal or Fine Center, hope to draw a Crane Dance. You can hit with Crane Dance, search for Fine Center. I've done that before. People don't necessarily always block Crane Dance because it's just for 1. Those smart Chain players will. But then if they block it with, a piece of equipment for 1, you do just buff it with Ancestral Empowerment or the Bracers and go and get Fine Center anyway. And then you can Snapdragon on this and play Fine Center and get the bonus. You don't need to have Soulbeam Strike in your deck to make this work. In fact, it's actually better because Soulbeam Strike isn't particularly good to just have these. And outside of that, it is still a 0 that attacks for 2. They do still both block for 3. They do pitch to Kodachi for 3. The last card is Snatch. We have 3 of this. We take 1 out against aggro decks because it's just a bit slow because it doesn't have built-in go again. But it is a great card, so it is worth just thinking about, including Snatch. Even just hitting with a Snatch at the end of a combo chain. So you've done a leg tap, it didn't hit, you play a Snatch. Getting that additional card draw, right, is good enough because it lets you have a choice as to what you arsenal. You could get another Plunder Run or a leg tap or something like that. So it's really good. It just gives you more options as to what you want to keep for next turn. And of course, there are some really great times where you can go with a Snatch and then you can use a Razor Reflex to make it hit and get go again, which is perfect. Or, something which I love, which is Kodachi Snatch. Then you're definitely taking 1 card block plus equipment, or a 2 card block if they've got run out of their equipment late game, because they just can't let you draw 2 cards from Snatch, especially if you're still presenting Snapdragon Scalers. And you could just get go again on the snaps very, very easily. Because imagine that. Kodachi snaps, Mask Trigger, and Snatch. You're drawing a card, right? You're drawing 2 cards, in fact. And it has go again. Your opponent can't let that happen, so they have to fully block it. So you're getting the equipment, you're getting that. And part of winning with this deck is getting that equipment and getting it gone. Then we also have Art of War. It's a great card for setting up big turns. Really good in Arsenal for control games, where you have the Tunic counter every 3 turns. So you can Arsenal Art of War and then play it with Tunic counter and then have a really big turn. Banish something crap like a 0 cost or a head jab. I have banished better cards than that, but sometimes that's what you want. Like, for example, if I have... So I had Surging Strike, Mugenshin, Art of War. Surging Strike, Mugenshin, and E-Strike. I banished the E-Strike to draw cards so I could play the Surging Strike and then hopefully have it hit, and I could pitch a 0 cost to go and fetch Whelming Gustwave. So the E-Strike was not the right decision in that category. It was better to keep the combo. But you do take it out against aggro because you don't want to spend the turn to be setting it up. So the aggro list is very much E-Strike out, Crane Dance, Find Center in, along with Head Jab, Hurricane Technique, Torrent of Tempo, depending on what you're playing. If you're playing against someone like Chain, who doesn't like to block, Torrent of Tempo goes in. Hurricane Technique obviously goes in. You might put in the Flick Flack as well. It kind of depends on who you're playing against. Like, for example, against Rydar, you want 0 cost defense reactions in your arsenal so you can stop yourself from being killed by a massive Intimidate turn. So you up Flick Flack to 3 against decks that require setup, like Bravo, Aggro, Bravo. Obviously against Prism, Ingo, your commander, conquers, just because you need to be able to break their illusions. And also, if someone, a deck relies heavily on their arsenals, some of them do, like Bravo, it is good to throw in the Command and Conquers. It does force blocks. And of course, if you can buff it, you can't really buff it in this deck, but if you can buff it with an Art of War, maybe, then it can be very good. So, like, for your control matchup, you're cutting Find Center and Crane Dance because you don't need that many blues. You're adding 3 Minnowisms, probably adding Unmovable if it's a Bravo or someone like that. You're probably adding in your Art of Wars and your Belittles, right? And then you're just going to go with that. So you're going to have your Belittles, your Art of Wars. You're going to have a lot more setup options. You might put in your Flick Flacks as well. You're probably going to have about 64 cards. It's going to be quite good. And then against aggro, you're going to put in Torrent of Tempo. You're going to put in Hurricane Technique, Head Jab, Find Center, Crane Dance, and not Art of War. And just go with that. Maybe Flick Flack as well. And that's kind of really the list. I mean, Unmovable is there for Dorinthia, Bravo, not Rydar, because you don't want to be in a situation where this is in your arsenal and you get intimidated for 4 and you can't play it. But for other people that are hitting you with big attacks like Prism, chuck in the Unmovable. One of the things about this deck is you can run Command and Conquers. You can run 2 of them. You can run 1 Unmovable. You do just go through your deck really fast. You do 4 cards a turn. You have on-hit draw effects. You're just churning through your deck. So if you put in 2 Command and Conquers, you will see them. If you put in an Unmovable, you will see them. If you arsenal it correctly or hold it in hand versus Prism, you will get it at the right time. So that's kind of just how the deck works. The sideboard is quite simple. I do have specific variations on what I put in on each hero. So, like Prism will get Command and Conquers, Heart and Cross Straps, and then I might put in the Flick Flacks as well so I can block Eruditions better. But I'll be playing reasonably aggro. Yeah, but I'll leave you guys because it's kind of a bit of fun figuring out a sideboard yourself. I've given you, I think, the rough blueprints of what works against control and what works against aggro, and it's for you really. I think it's a very, very important part, and I said this last week, of learning the RTN is trying to figure out the field you're playing against, who's playing control, who's playing aggro, because you can sit you can sit down against, like, for example, my final last night, you can sit down against a Bravo player and think, well, he's probably playing control because he's playing Bravo, and then he'll come in with an aggro deck that has E-strikes and go again and stuff like that, and you're just like, well, I haven't teched for this properly. So it is important to try and get an understanding of what your opponents are playing, just by talking to people in the field and watching games and figuring out what decks you're likely to be up against. Sometimes you do just go in blind. My top 4 opponent went in blind against me because he hadn't checked with anyone what I was playing. And he teched for Control Katsu, but I, of course, never play Control Katsu, so he had too many cards in his deck and he had Eclipse and things like that, so it wasn't really what he wanted. So that's the deck, really. Obviously, you can ask questions in the comments. If you are asking a question, please do hit the like and subscribe button. Just because, obviously, I need to get that subscriber count up so I can properly, use YouTube and use all the features and things like that. And also, I enjoy making these videos, and the more people I make them for, the more of a positive mental feedback I get. before making them. So, if you think I'm making good videos and you want to hear more content from me, I have experience with more heroes than just Katsu. I have a lot of Kano experience. I have a lot of Bravo. I have a lot of Bravo. Sorry, I have all the Bravo cards as well, so I might be playing Bravo soon. I did. Yeah, I have a lot of Bravo cards, and I have all of the. Basically, I have playsets for Bravo, Chain, Ninja, Ranger for Tails, Wizard, Chain, Prism, Bolton. And I'll be playing. And I guess I have a Levia playset as well, but I'm not so keen on that. Just because she needs a bit of a buff. So, I do play other heroes. I will be doing deck techs on other heroes soon. So, if there's a hero you'd particularly like me to look into, I can probably give it a try. But obviously, I'm not. I'm not going to put myself forward as the god of deck building. I very much learned through experience. I started with this list that I took, I think, from the Card Merchant tournament in New Zealand. My first event with it, I went like 3-3, did really badly. And then I basically spent a month just practicing it with my friends, practicing it against all of the matchups, showing up to a weekly event, playing online with friends, and playing weekly online CC events and getting those reps in until the point where all the lines I could see were clear. I was making the right decision with every aggro hand, keeping the pressure on, reading my opponent correctly to see when I should put more pressure on because he didn't want to block. And there's lots of other little things like that you can really only get through gameplay, and I kind of have to emphasize that. I feel like Katsu is a very, because we've moved on from the deck list now. We're talking about how to play Katsu. I don't want people just taking this deck and then being like, well, I lost with aggro. Aggro Katsu must be terrible. Oh, he just won that 30-person event. That's not a big event. It's not 60 people, it's not 80 people. It can't be very good. Or, insulting my meta in the UK, which I've seen a few people do. The meta in the UK is quite good. It does skew towards aggressive because we have a lot of chain, and a lot of people are going aggro to beat chain. But we have lots of interesting decks, and we have some very good players. So what I will say is you can't just take a deck like this and expect to win. There are a lot of difficult hands where you get all reds and you have to make the correct decision. There are a lot of places where you need to have a lot of planning for the next turn in terms of what you arsenal. So, it seems from the outside, and I've said this a few times, but I think this is important, that when I'm playing, I keep drawing good hands and I keep drawing the combo pieces that match together. To a certain extent, it is true, but the parts of it you don't see is that every turn something is going into Arsenal that sets up that turn. Is it a plunder run that lets me draw cards so I get more chances to get it in? Is it the first or second piece of a combo that lets me maybe draw the first piece or the second piece of a combo and combine those two together? So I'm actually searching 8 cards for 2 cards, which is not as bad odds as just hoping to draw it from the top of my deck. Or am I baiting a defense in a certain way that's going to let me do the attack I want? For example, I have played games where I've pitched a blue. I've played a leg tap, knowing full well that my opponent will block it because he doesn't want me to get the combo off. I have then followed on with a surging strike. Okay, using all of my resources, but that's fine. And then my opponent has to decide, because he's just fully blocked the leg tap. Does he also fully block the surging strike? Now, if he fully blocks the surging strike, what he doesn't know is that I have a red Whelming Gustwave in my arsenal. So I search for the, and it's all that lines of decision making with Katsu, because very much both you and your opponent need to be cognizant of your entire deck and what the what are the things that they can threaten you with. Good people playing against Katsu will check your graveyard very often. They'll figure out how many red Whelming Gustwaves you have left, how many red Rising Knee Thrust you have left, and they'll factor that into their blocking process as to decide whether or not they block the Surging Strike. Because, for example, if I only have blue Whelming Gustwaves left, and they're only coming in for 2, then you know for a fact that you can block, that you can not block Surging Strike, take 5, easily block Whelming Gustwave. If I have a Megensham release, you still have 3 cards in hand to block that and stop the Lord of Wind combo. Whereas if my deck is full of red Whelming Gustwaves, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to fully block Surging Strike, check and see, does he have a Whelming Gustwave in his hand? If he does, then obviously you need to probably block that as well. you're going to have a slow turn next turn, but you stopped my big combo. If I don't have it in hand, I can't go and search for it. Therefore, you have other options. So playing against Katsu requires quite a lot of knowledge. So does playing Katsu. And you need to be constantly aware of what's left in your deck, what options you have to search with Katsu, what are you going to do if and on a hit effect. This is a big one, right? Actually, let's talk about this. Every turn comes down to one or two plans. What am I going to do to set up my Mask of Momentum, right? What am I going to do if my on-hit effect triggers? What am I going to do if my Katsu effect doesn't trigger? And if you can have a plan for all three of those things, then each turn is going to be a good turn for you, regardless of what's going on. Because you'll have a plan for when your mask is going to trigger, and you'll have a plan for what the best attack for your mask to trigger on is. And what I mean by that is, because it's the third attack, you can set it up where you Kadachi for once, leg tap, and then you're triggering mask on a rising knee thrust, for example. Kadachi twice, leg tap, but leg tap is only for 4. So that's easier to block than the 5 on the rising knee thrust. Do you want to do a big attack with, say, a Surging Strike and a Plunder Run for 8, which is going to get a big block, and then set up your mask to draw on the Magenshin release if you get that, or if not, on a Snatch at the end of your turn to give you Arsenal. So there's a lot of decision points where you're trying to figure out, where do I want my mask trigger to be, and what attack do I want my mask trigger to be on, because that's going to affect how your opponent blocks. You want to talk about what you're presenting in terms of research, resources, cards in hand, versus what you play. So you're trying to get your opponent to block the wrong thing, i.e. the Surging and not the Whelming and the Magenshin, or just to block the Whelming and then just come in with an E-Strike for 7, right? For example, because Surging Whelming into an E-Strike is still a good combo. You're still dealing lots of damage. So there's a lot of little decision-making processes in playing Katsu that will take you from drawing bad and having bad turns to optimizing the turns you have, and I think that's very important. Kind of what I want to say, and you can only get that by reps. And I'm on, I've been grinding out the Katsu games quite hard, and I've been playing a lot of Chain to help people practice as well. So I have, put in the time to get good with Katsu. That's kind of what I want to say. So for the last, I think I'm actually going to leave this video here, and then I'm going to follow up this video. I think there'll be interest, but let me know if there is. Just tell me, as I really want to see this, is because I have 3 games of me playing this deck streamed, and obviously I have the audio for those, but I was thinking that I could do a live commentary on why I was playing a certain way, the decision points I made, and feedback. So if you would like that, please do let me know, and I will follow up with it in a few days. As it is, we're at 42 minutes, and I need to get back from my lunch break, and do some work. But I hope you found this interesting. I expect there'll be lots of questions. I will say that I'm not probably not gonna answer all of the questions if I think that it's something you just have to learn by playing. There are things I can suggest and feedback I can give, but a lot of decision point stuff really is just, you need to get games in against Chain, you need to get games in against the decks you're going to play against, and figure out when to put the gas on and when to defend and things like that. There's a lot I feel with this deck, and with lots of decks in Fab, that you can't really learn just by looking at a video like this. You just have to take the genesis of what I've given you in here and actually sit down and get the reps in. And aggro is both an easy list and a hard list. It's easy because your goal is just to go stab, 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 kill, but it's hard because knowing when to take damage to do more damage, knowing that there's basically a real big flow and tempo to the game, and you have to play enough reps to get a feel for that, to understand when you just let yourself get beaten up, how much the maximum damage you can deal with your hand is. Is your opponent going to block if you take 10 damage this turn? Are they just going to block out your next turn? Or are you going to be able to get that damage back in? So there's lots of stuff going on, and a lot of it is just how you feel and how you read the game. So it's important to do that. Don't just, I don't think you can net deck any deck and walk into a tournament and win. I know that there are good players who can obviously build a deck and go and win with it. After a couple of weeks of playing, one of my friends has only been playing for a month. Yeah, exactly. But it's a good game. It has a lot of nuance. It's also straightforward on the surface. I genuinely think after playing it now since February, the Flesh and Blood is genuinely one of the best designed card games that I've ever played, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, I've played so many card games. You're just a little bit of a tangent at the end of this video because I've been talking about Katsu so much, but you're engaged constantly with your opponent's turn, which a lot of card games fail to do, unless you're playing like Control Blue or something in Magic. You're always thinking about your next play while your opponent's doing stuff, which speeds up your turns because you don't have to stop and think, okay, what do I do now that I've drawn this card? You know what you have going into your turn, so you're constantly engaged with planning out your turn in response to what your opponent's doing, and then when your turn hits, you're ready to go with it, so it's kind of very fast-paced. I really like the fact that you can pitch to pay for things, so you're never really... Sometimes you're resource screwed, but you're never, like, out of nothing you can do. But also you can use that mechanic in, slower games to pitch in a certain way to set up what's coming up later. That's brilliant. Flesh and Blood is just really a fantastic game. I'm really enjoying playing it. There are some criticisms. It does have a lot of variance in that you draw 4 cards a turn. You can just get screwed by your draws. A lot of that does come in at the deck building phase in terms of how you tweak and how you sort things out. Like, for example, if you're building Bravo and you're putting in a lot of reds and then you're trying to think, well, how am I going to pay for this 6-cost attack? If you try and go super aggro, you are going to draw hands that are all reds where you can't pay for the big Bravo attacks that you're used to paying for, versus something like Katsu where ultimately, because so much is free, even if you draw a handful of reds and you have your cross straps and your tunic to help smooth things out, you can still do a lot with that hand. And of course, if you have, like, for example, if I draw 4 reds, but I have a Surging and Whelming, then I'm just going to break the cross straps, play Surging, play Whelming, figure out what happens after that, right? And it kind of smooths out a lot of those negative hands. So, I find it very interesting from a design perspective that not every hero can go aggro just as easily, and not every hero can go control as easily. The cost of your weapon massively impacts what you can actually do with your hero, which I think is brilliant design as well. I'm just really positive about Fab. I kind of just want to get that out of there. Every hero that comes out, some like Chain look initially overpowered, but then, they are very good, but they do have lots of variance, and there are ways to beat them consistently. Prism with Heralds feels overpowered, but again, not winning tournaments, there are ways to beat it. And this is the best thing. Sorry, bit of a cough. The best thing, genuinely, is how you can have this hero like Katsu from set 1, who hasn't actually had any support in the latest set, really, just coming out and beating a brand new hero. And if you look at the top 8, as I said in my last video, from all these things, we've had Reinars winning, Boltons winning, Katsu's, Dory's, Dash. There's about 8 different heroes out of the 12 adult heroes that we can play in the game who have won an RTN, made top cuts at RTNs, and I would consider to be a hard match or a competitive matchup into a lot of the top decks. So, like, the balance is fantastic. Like, if they keep this up, if we somehow manage to keep Katsu balanced versus Tales of Arya, I will be shocked, but I will be massively impressed. At some point, we have to get rotation and power creep, but if they can hold it off, and we have a pool of, like, imagine, right, we're getting 3 new heroes now, then I think we'll get a supplementary set. But if we get 3 new heroes and we've got 15 adult heroes, and say 11 of them or 12 of them are competitive in the national tournaments coming up this year, then LSS have done a fantastic job, and that's just amazing. And then we'll just have to see what happens next and if they can keep that up. But if they can, then Flesh and Blood is a great game, and it's a card game where I literally couldn't be happier. So yeah, it's a great game. And yeah, that's it really. Playing Road to Nationals, they're fun. If you want to talk about this deck, let me know. If anyone wants, I guess, last thoughts, not that anyone will have listened this far, but if anyone does want a exhibition match against Katsu, let me know. I'm happy to play on TTS, record it, and put it up on my stream, and we can talk about what happened afterwards. That would be fun. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening, and of course, talk to you all soon.